People of Reddit who work in a casino. What's some of the saddest moments you witnessed? Former poker dealer at a casino. An older gentleman started to have a heart attack at the table. I called the floor person for assistance with the call button. Paramedics are rushed in, etc., all within minutes. In this instance I am instructed to keep the game rolling by the floor person as he whispered in my ear. 2 hands are dealt and played, and a player at the table requested the heart attack guy get moved somewhere else as it is disrupting the game. Another player asked to have his chips picked up and call for the open seat because we have a wait list. I was disgusted. I saw a poker dealer have an epileptic seizure at the table. The paramedics hadn't even arrived before players were complaining about getting another dealer or requesting a table change, while the dealer was seizing on the floor next to them. There were these 2 middle-aged Greek or Cypriot ladies who were always on the slot machines. Every day when I started my shift they were there when I finished 10 hours later. And still there in the same clothes the next day oftentimes. They were super nice and always polite to the staff. One day they hit the jackpot and win big. I think it was either £15,000 or £45,000. It was a good few years ago now. Everyone was overjoyed for them except the managers, obviously. Well, the managers then gave them free meals at the restaurant and an open bar tab until every single penny of that money was clawed back into the casino. A guy blew his retirement and had to go back to work. He was a retired postmaster and went back as a delivery driver. Oh no. It's not the big things. It's the little things. You see someone rocking 3 machines at 9 AM on a Tuesday. They have places they ought to be. Not in this casino. Thanksgiving. Christmas. Hell. Even Mother's Day. Place is slammed. Go home, people. We used to have a woman who would be on the blackjack tables for 5 days, nights straight. Her husband would call and tell her that her kids wanted her home. Her boss actually came to the casino to try and get her to leave. She was missing work. I don't know what happened to her, but she's probably ruined her life. Grandmother, mother, and daughter heading to the casino by car from 2 hours away. Mother had a postcard to get a free cast iron pan for showing up. Daughter is more than 8 months pregnant. 1 hour away from the casino, daughter starts to have labor pains. Mother won't stop and take her to the hospital. She's gotta have that tent pan. They arrive at the casino an hour before the promotion was going to start. Mother raises all hell trying to get her pan, but the workers for the promo haven't arrived yet. Daughter ends up having to be transported by ambulance to the hospital. All over a $10 pan. My mom works as a dealer at a casino and has told me multiple stories of grown men wearing adult diapers at the table so they don't have to leave to use the restroom. During my 8-hour shift, a gentleman won $15,000 on a slot machine. Punched out at end of shift and had the next 2 days off. Returned to work after my weekend to find the man still sitting at the same slot machine. He had been there for 2+ days, losing $15,000. If you win that much money, pretty much have the mentality in which you will never win this much again. I live next to Atlantic City, and when I'm up like $50 I walk out of the casino and play in the ocean for a few hours. I always feel as if the casino paid me to have a fun beach day. A previous boss of mine worked at a casino in AC. He said he saw all kinds of terrible things, but the worst was when they had to close the main lobby cause a guy jumped from the 4th floor after losing. It's been about 15 years. But I worked in one for about 4 years. The one that stands out was a woman who came from the country to the big city to get Xmas gifts for the whole family, including young kids who still believed in Santa and all of that. But spent all of the Christmas money at the casino before going to the mall. Also, a few years later I went back to visit. And when talking to one of the pit bosses about who was still there and whatnot, she told me one of my old regulars, who was actually nice and likable, a rare trait in that business, had recently committed suicide as a result of gambling too much. Addiction is a horrible disease. We had to evacuate and close down for the rest of the day due to a burst pipe causing no running water. When I walked outside, there was an elderly lady throwing a legit tantrum in the parking lot. She was on the ground kicking and screaming. Her screams sounded like something you'd expect from someone who just lost a family member. Not someone who had to leave the casino for a few hours. I left, but some of the security who were dealing with her told me later she was too upset to drive home and they had to call a family member to pick her up. I've seen some SH. A lot of what others have commented is fairly common, but this was definitely the most messed up. I worked in a 2-casino town. One was evacuated due to a fire. The gamblers hung out in the parking lot until firefighters said the casino wouldn't reopen anytime soon. They then drove across town and resumed gambling without missing a beat. Former valet at a casino. The amount of daily regulars who drove barely functioning vehicles full of trash, roaches, and rats who would actually valet their car and go gamble away any money they had to their name was honestly depressing. The saddest I remember was a 90-plus-year-old lady who drove a 91 Corolla, and when we got in her car we realized she had no power steering fluid at all and her steering wheel would barely turn. I have no earthly idea how her frail arms could turn it. We went and bought her some before she left that evening. I did casino security for 3 years before I became a police officer. Had a Code M medical early one morning. Around 4 or 5 a.m. Old guy in his 80s passed out and fell out of his chair. Wife sitting next to him. I was the first to get to him. Did a quick assessment and found he didn't have a pulse. Immediately started CPR. The old lady looked over and said, "Oh, he does this all the time. Don't worry about him." Between chest compressions. I told her he wasn't breathing and she just kept playing her allot machine. She didn't miss a spin even when the paramedics took him away. I saw her again the next night and asked how he was doing. With the straightest face ever. She said, "Oh, he never woke up. I'm sure he's in a freezer by now." And went right back to the same machine she was playing the night before. This is the worst one yet. And I've been through that whole thread. Worked in a casino for about 7 years, and the one that has always stuck with me was when a kid, 18/19, came with his friends and lost $100 playing blackjack. Then he was sitting there, looking dejected and watching his friends win. He left and came back with another $100. I could tell from the way he was acting he probably didn't have the original $100 to lose, so he definitely couldn't afford to lose another $100. So I asked if he was sure he wanted to play. He nodded his head and solemnly said yes. Unfortunately, he lost that money too. I wasn't a casino employee, but I was an EMT in a certain beach town on the East Coast that could be described as bargain bin Vegas. On a given shift we would probably field 3 or 4 casino calls. More in the summer. It was pretty soul-crushing. Most calls were alcohol-related or obvious slip-and-fall scams. But occasionally we would happen upon some real tragedies. This one sticks with me the most though. One day we had a call for a woman in her 70s sitting at the slots experiencing chest pain around 2 a.m. She refused treatment despite being in bad shape. We pleaded and begged, and even had the on-call cardiologist talk to her on the phone. But she was on a streak and wouldn't hear it. An hour later we were back doing CPR. She died right there in front of the same slot machine, with a receipt for $7 in winnings. Super messed up. The amount of employees we had to treat for exhaustion or diabetic-related emergencies due to them not having enough breaks to manage their blood sugars was also super messed up. F that town. The most depressing shifts I ever did as a medic were when I had the casino shift. I only covered it a few times, but damn was it depressing getting there at the start of my shift and seeing people lined up in the morning just waiting for the doors to open. I worked at a casino as a dealer through college. A lot of incidents were pretty sad, especially with regulars that you liked. One regular would tell me about his middle school age kids. And then I would realize the next week or so later that he was missing their school plays, recitals, etc. because he was at the tables. I remember working an overnight one Christmas Eve and begging him to go home when 6/7 Sam rolled around because his kids would be up and opening presents. Other times just people screaming at you for stealing their mortgage payments from them that month. Then seeing them back again the next day. Not a casino employee. My story comes from my time in the military. Slot machines are everywhere in Germany. The small post I was on had a few slot machines in a back room of the bowling alley. One of our NCOs would go every payday and blow his entire paycheck over lunch. We would know if he won or not by the mood he was in after lunch. When he won, he would tell us about winning $600 after dropping $1,500 into the machine. In general, people who come for the first time and are super nice and friendly. They don't care about winning or losing much, just came to have fun. They come back a few more times. Then after a few years they're regulars that don't smile anymore. They don't laugh. They don't count their wins. Just their losses. And sweat every comp point they earn and act like gambling is their job now and the focus of their life. I've seen more than one person have this happen to them. The other saddest thing is when a regular stops coming in and the spouse comes out and tells us they passed. We're almost family with some of our regulars and it hurts to get that news. My favorite regulars were this sweet little old couple. They'd come in a couple times a week. And unlike a lot of regulars, they just came to have fun for a few hours. They didn't spend much and were happy whether they won or lost. If I was there, they'd always specifically come to me. They really did feel like family. About a year ago they just stopped coming. I have no way of knowing why. I really do miss them and hope they're okay. I don't work in a casino, but live near Atlantic City. Seeing unattended children playing near the entrance to the casino floor where children aren't allowed. You brought your kids to a casino where kids aren't allowed. And just left them in a hallway. I went to a casino for the first time a few years ago with a group for my mother-in-law's birthday. There were signs everywhere stating that it is a crime to leave children unattended in your car in the parking lot. Pretty effing sad. Had a family friend who ran a 24-hour daycare center. He ran it to help night shift folks and to be there for families in an emergency. He made his money on people who left their kids for arbitrary lengths of time, 4 hours. 48 hours. Doesn't matter, to go gamble.